Thank you so much. It's a real pleasure to be here in your wonderful city. Thank you for having me. I want to start by thanking my colleagues whose contributions were very valuable to this presentation, and it comes from knowledge that's been generated over many years from the entire Julie's Bicycle team, particularly our founder, Alison Tickell, and my colleagues Farah Ahmed, Graciela Melitsko-Thornton, Chiara Badiali, and Claire Buckley. As we all know, we humans with a great sense of ourselves and what progress is are now interfering with forces that have kept this beautiful planet stable for a millennium. The Earth is a big breathing heart, regulating temperatures by receiving and releasing heat from the sun. But greenhouse gases, so called because they trap heat in the atmosphere, are at such a volume that the Earth is not able to absorb or release them quickly enough, so we're getting warmer and warmer and warmer. These gases, caused by the burning of fossil fuels, the history of our plants, held in ancient sediments as oil, gas, coal, which we burn and then transform into new forms, carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, and so on. We're overburdening the natural equilibrium to breaking point. Julie's Bicycle was founded in 2007 to develop industry-led practical responses to climate change and mobilize the cultural, creative community to take action. JB, as I'll call Julie's Bicycle for the rest of the presentation, started with a question. What is the best way that culture can catalyze change? This question has deepened and nuanced over time as we've pioneered new approaches that have helped drive the creative climate movement. There are a few principles that underpin our work. We're guided by a deep respect for science, data, and expertise. We support the arts and cultural sector to become net zero and to restore nature. We champion justice and fairness and recognize that the climate and ecological crisis has its roots in harmful systems and unfairly impacts those who have contributed the least to it. And it takes everyone. It really does take everyone. We need a collective movement of action, encompassing many perspectives and voices, working towards a shared purpose. So, why culture? We can't fix this crisis with the same mindset which created it in the first place. And to quote Amitav Ghosh, let us make no mistake. The climate crisis is also a crisis of culture, and thus of the imagination. Cultural values need to be rethought and challenged ethically, socially, environmentally, and politically. And some of the things that we've lost need to be restored, valuing community, well-being, regenerative growth. The solutions lie in going to the root cause. Everyone mediates their lives and experiences through their own culture and those of others. People experience meaning through non-didactic forms, such as the arts and culture. Creative industries shape design. Heritage, both tangible and intangible, is a manifestation of our belief systems and how we live. Culture is already at the heart of everyday experiences. What we need to do is now center it at the heart of climate solutions. By doing this, we're far more likely to meet the climate crisis in a way that is equitable, that is just, that doesn't have unintended consequences. The climate and nature crisis is not purely scientific or physical. We work on systems change, understanding that the cultural system is the means, not just the message. We operate at every level of the cultural and creative ecosystem, from individual freelancers to artists to grassroots groups and networks, to businesses and institutions and culture policymakers and funders and so on, and anyone that I may have forgotten. Our team combines cultural and environmental expertise, climate action by the creative community, with the creative community, and for the creative community. We pioneered the first carbon footprint methodology for the music industry, and then we adopted it across performing arts, visual arts, and buildings. Our creative climate tools, a free carbon calculator we've developed specifically for the creative industries, making transparent tracking and reporting of greenhouse gas emissions across offices, venues, and cultural buildings, even tours and outdoor events and festivals. We made it easier, possible, and relevant for arts and cultural organizations. Since the launch of the tools in 2009, over 2,000 organizations in 43 countries worldwide have used them. The tools allow users to track a range of different impact areas, including energy use, water consumption, waste, travel, freight, and materials. They also offer a Beyond Carbon survey, which allows organizations to record what they do around sustainability, going beyond the basic carbon numbers that we were used to. And the survey is also designed to double up as a checklist and encourage organizations to take further environmental actions in areas they may not have explored before. And we continue to add new features to it. We also maintain the largest online library of resources of creative climate action for the arts and culture anywhere in the world. We do the research and then we translate it to actionable guides, bringing together stories of change through webinars and podcasts and case studies, and we help those working in the arts understand how their work is intrinsically linked to the big picture. For example, we have a Creative Climate Justice Hub, which is a dynamic library of resources explaining the concepts of climate justice and how the creative community around the world is putting it into action. We run tens of projects across a multitude of focus areas. So for the purposes of today, I'll highlight two of our long-term programs for you. The first is our Arts Council England program. We've been working with the Arts Council England to deliver this program, an environmentally focused program, since it was introduced in 2012. It was a world-first policy intervention to make environmental reporting and planning a condition of offering cultural funding for all the organizations receiving multi-year core support. And the program has been designed to help the arts and cultural sector reduce its carbon footprint and to develop with the sector the understanding and skills to then take action at scale. Beyond the funding requirements on environmental reporting and putting in place environmental policies and action plans, we've been delivering a program of support and professional development to organizations. Over the 12 years, we've gone from building basic environmental literacy and breadth to deep dives into best practice and sustainable production, cultural buildings, climate justice, what it takes to support research and experimentation and practice. And our current phase of focuses that I'm particularly excited about, which covers governance, adaptation, and resilience. It's built literacy, confidence, and leadership skills, allowing cultural professionals the agency to act. It's also helped to build longitudinal data, which you can see some of here, demonstrating material and measurable reductions in carbon emissions. For example, the Spotlight cohort of 30 organizations representing 80 sites, around a third of the total carbon emissions of the portfolio, achieved a reduction of 19% electricity usage and 32% gas usage, and an overall 40% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions compared to the baseline year over the last 5 years. And the impacts are beyond carbon. into governance, for example, where 66% of organizations now formally recognize environmental responsibilities in their job roles, and that's up from 44% in 2018. 3/4 of organizations have produced or programmed work explicitly around environmental sustainability, in particularly and, where possible, seed grants for projects and financial support opened by application to alumni to help kickstart their cultural-led climate projects. CCL grew out of a few things. When we started the program around 2016, none of the major cultural leadership transformation programs at the time had climate and ecology as a priority, and most barely touched on it at all. So when we think about the scale of this change that's needed over the next 2 decades, which means that every job has to be a climate job, then there's a huge gap. There's a misalignment in values and disconnection with what's happening around us. While we at JB are lucky enough to meet creative people committed to climate action everywhere and every day, the people doing the work often feel isolated and alone. And we noticed that we were losing people because the kind of leadership needed to really make change is really hard. And so we decided to create a space for all this emergent practice to be recognized when it seemed to be continually overwhelmed by the status quo of the cultural system. And we wanted fundamentally to create a program and a network that would build community, that would bring people together working across different art forms, across very, very different lived experiences, and from across the cultural ecosystem. So participants include artists and funders working together to collectively explore what systems change for the arts can look like. And so we started calling it a creative climate movement to give it that recognition. When you give something a name like that, you then make it real. And in some places, that has been our role with CCL, to bring in this outside energy that catalyzes something locally. 280 creative climate leaders working in over 30 countries have participated in 12 programs. They work across art forms and encompass everyone from climate justice activists to people steering decarbonization strategies at multinational creative industries and businesses like Live Nation, curators commissioning massive public artworks to sound artists and game theatre designers. It's also an amazing library of culture-based climate action at all scales and in all forms. Our founder, Alison Tickell, is now working on an inclusive international mobilization of creative climate action in support of creative, ambitious decision-making at COP30, COP31, and COP32. We Make Tomorrow will launch with a global call. a signatory campaign calling on policymakers to recognize that culture is at the heart of climate action, that heritage represents people, values, and identities, places and sites. The arts offer a wide range of sensory tools and access to huge communities of shared interest and gatherings. And creativity and associated industries quite literally shape our world: design, architecture, fashion, media, and so on. So we're working in close alignment with Brazil's Ministry of Culture, the Cultural Secretariat in Belém, Pará, and with the COP presidency to elevate culture as critical drivers for change. These are just a few examples of our multi-year programs. The way we work follows a similar pattern. We identify gaps, we then co-design solutions, we pilot, we adapt, we share, we scale it, and then we start again. When we talk about the creative climate movement, we're really talking about an emergent, shape-shifting, constantly moving and evolving creative community that shares at its heart a recognition of the climate and ecological crisis we're facing and a critical urgency and need to respond to it in whatever way that we can. A creative community that is deeply embedded in the state of our ecological systems. Over the years, we've identified 8 creative climate trends, emergent communities of practice where people can place themselves. I believe each one of us in this room can place ourselves in at least one, if not more, of these. The way this expresses itself is as varied as all of us here. We can shift conversations and ask the difficult questions. We can push the boundaries of what is currently imaginable. We can champion the voices of those who are otherwise silenced. We can bring people together. We can model the kind of world we want in our spaces through our stories and in the way that we run our businesses. We can use our ingenuity and design and creativity to build new solutions. We can create space for conversations. We can highlight the way in which environmental and climate stories aren't just about science, but about all the ways in which the myriad of lives and the myriad of places are being shifted, sometimes a little bit and sometimes catastrophically. We can use the weight of our cultural presence to make sure that governments are listening. And here I'll let you take this graph in. It's an illustration of the potentials to make a difference across the entire movement. I ask us now to turn to justice. The systems and structures designed through colonialism aren't relics of the past. Our institutions are still designed in this way. Many of our civic institutions here in the global north, including banks, arts venues, technology, and educational institutions, were built on dirty money from fossil fuels, tobacco, sugar plantations, and rare earth minerals. The effects of climate change are unevenly felt on local, national, and global levels. Those who have contributed the least to causing this crisis are now suffering the most and are most exposed to its impacts, not because they're inherently more vulnerable, but because of the inequalities of our social, economic, and material systems. Movements from the climate and environmental justice and frameworks like just transition help us to understand and consider approaches to address the planetary crisis in ways which move us towards just and inclusive futures. Any climate solution needs to consider the needs of those most affected by it. There are clear ways of understanding how we got here. And there is a story to this extraction and the modeling of our current overwhelmingly dominant system, which relies on consumption of material resources and a linear economy of take, make, throw away. In the context of climate justice, this is so important because what has happened in the past needs to be understood as a way of addressing the current systemic barriers to change, of inequity, of deep injustice. If we look at who has contributed the most to the problem, we get a sense of who needs to do most of the work. The Industrial Revolution and much of the wealth of the global north was built on the extraction and trade of resources like agricultural produce, rare earth minerals, and fossil fuels. And this often means the displacement and the dispossession of people from places that we don't necessarily see, hear from, or know about. Colonialism also changed our relationship with nature from something that humans are part of to something, to a resource that can be used and then discarded. And those in the global north who have more relative safety cannot ignore this inequality. This is the real crisis. And it's also the real opportunity. It's where we, as artists, as cultural practitioners, are so important. We can make the connections between colonial histories and the present. We can explain how the systems that built our modern lives have come to be based on fossil fuels, plastic, chemicals, and pollutants. We can make meaning of these often complex and difficult histories so that they resonate with our communities now. We can tell the stories of the lands and people at the front lines of the climate crisis. Indigenous communities have always known very deeply in their bones the power of art, the power of ritual, the power of dance and song to pass on knowledge of the landscape, to keep us safe and healthy and show gratitude for the abundance all around us. We really need these perspectives to remind us of the huge possibilities and our responsibility to work in collaboration with each other and the natural world as equal partners. As well as looking to the past to explain our present, there is power in using creativity to imagine our collective futures, to remind us that in our futures we have joy, beauty, and community. In our futures, our artistic work celebrates the earth, grieves its destruction, and actively rebuilds it. This work is already happening. Civic Square and Dark Matter Labs in the UK are two examples who are enacting deeply inclusive, accessible, and sustainable neighborhoods and showing us in real time what they might look like if they were designed for a 3-degree global temperature rise. In our futures, we've learned from indigenous people, from Sapmi to Abya Yala, from Kashmir to Palestine. We hear their lessons about what it means to truly know and love a land, to care for it, and to repair it. In Zimbabwe, the Ndau Festival of the Arts reclaims indigenous Ndau cultural practices and language to revive the knowledge contained within them, uses film to document the sacredness of the land and how it has changed, and to share that knowledge with children in wider society. In our futures, we experiment with how and why we create art, how and why we tour it, how our audiences experience our efforts to test sustainable ideas. At JB, we worked with a disabled-led charity called Attitude is Everything, and a sustainability organization called A Greener Future to research how green initiatives at live events and festivals are sometimes actually inaccessible for disabled people. We released a toolkit highlighting some of the issues and ideas for the sector to consider so that disabled people can be truly included. In our futures, perhaps we can see technology as a tool, not as an easy fix, to allow us to continue to consume it at our current rate. It has transparent supply chains and data ownership, and is designed with circularity, repair, reuse, and social and ecological values in mind. In Slovenia, designer Gaja Osole created knotweed paper using Japanese knotweed instead of wood pulp, limiting its destruction on the local ecosystem and reviving paper-making technologies. In our futures, our infrastructures, like our organizational governance and political systems, are designed to invest in the nourishment of people and the planet instead of profiting from it. In Australia, A Climate for Art is a growing union of arts organizations and workers committed to changing how arts and culture as an industry invests our financial resources. Author and activist Tony Kadebambare said, "The role of the artist is to make the revolution irresistible." We need artists to dream these bold, hopeful futures, to experiment with materials and design, to build an exciting movement, to challenge traditional power, and to help us to radically shift the values of our society away from consumption and individualism towards collective justice. It's hard work. It's hard work, and in this moment it can feel very overwhelming, but this is why we must be guided by creativity, joy, and community in our hearts. We have no other choice. Net zero isn't just a climate math problem. When we take responsibility and action to cut our impacts, we are rewiring our brain and ways of thinking. We're physically creating new ways of relating to the world. I will end with the acknowledgement that this event in this beautiful hall is happening during a resource-driven war in Sudan and the Congo, deeply entwined with mineral extraction. And there's an unimaginable genocide in Palestine, with my home, Lebanon, also under bombardment. In honor of the enormity of collective grief we're witness to, and to remind us of who and what we are building our futures for, I'll end by sharing a poem by Palestinian poet Mossab Abu Toha. Every child in Gaza is me. Every mother and father is me. Every house is my heart. Every tree is my leg. Every plant is my arm. Every flower is my eye. Every hole in the earth is my wound. Thank you very much.